My company called it a strategic restructuring. I called it what it was. They found out which one of us was right at 7:22 on a Thursday morning, when 43 active construction projects across 6 states stopped dead. Not because of weather, not because of a labor dispute, because of a single line I'd written into my employment contract 22 years ago. My name is Robert Calloway. I'm 58 years old, and I'm going to tell you how I made a 34-year-old MBA cry in a parking garage. But let's back up. I came to Harmon and Associates straight out of grad school. Civil engineering, structural focus. My specialty was bridge design, load calculations, foundation analysis, the math that stands between 100,000 people and a river. The firm had 11 employees when I started. By the time Marcus Webb walked through the door, we had 260. Most of what we built, I designed or supervised. The Caldwell Overpass, the Route 9 connector, the Millerton Pedestrian Bridge that won a state design award in 2019. My work was in the ground from Maine to Florida. I wasn't the flashiest person in the office. Never needed to be. Engineering doesn't reward flash. It rewards precision. You either get the numbers right or the structure falls down. That's the whole job. Marcus Webb did not understand this. Marcus Webb had a master's in business administration from a school with a good football team, a father who sat on the board of directors, and the absolute unshakable confidence of someone who had never once been told he was wrong. He came in as vice president of engineering operations 18 months ago. Operations, not engineering. That word was doing a lot of work in that title. Within 60 days, he'd reorganized the project management workflow, introduced a new billing software nobody asked for, and started holding mandatory 15-minute stand-up meetings every Monday that accomplished nothing except making people late to their actual work. He called it agile methodology. I called it theater. He learned my name about 4 months in. Not because he sought me out. Because Gerald, the CEO, mentioned me during a quarterly review. Robert's the one who holds our PE of record certifications on the active infrastructure portfolio, Gerald said. He's essentially the legal spine of our engineering division. Marcus nodded, like he understood what that meant. He did not understand what that meant. I watched him over the next year. Watched the way he moved through the office. The way he talked to the junior engineers like they were inputs in a spreadsheet. The way he'd present in board meetings using language he'd clearly pulled from industry reports, never once getting his hands dirty on an actual design. He reminded me of a substitute teacher who'd convinced himself he was the principal. In March, he called me into his office. Corner office. Gerald's old one, before Gerald moved to the executive suite. Robert, sit down. Not a question. He was already looking at his laptop. So I've been doing a deep dive on resource allocation, and I want to talk about your role. All right. Your compensation sits at the top of the salary band, significantly above market for someone in a non-client-facing position. He looked up, smiled like he was doing me a favor. The work you do, the PE stamps, the structural reviews we've been consulting with some firms in Denver, and honestly, we think we can get that function covered through a third-party certification partner. More flexible, more cost-effective. I looked at him for a moment. A third-party certification partner. Exactly. Firms that specialize in this. It's a growing sector. You're talking about outsourcing the licensed professional engineer of record function to a contracting firm. In a sense, yeah. The technical details would be, Marcus, I kept my voice even. Every active project we have is permitted under my PE license number. The state engineering boards in 6 states have my name on file as the responsible engineer. You can't transfer that to a vendor. That's not how licensure works. He blinked. Well, the legal team is looking at... Talk to Sandra, I said. Sandra Cho was our general counsel. She was sharp, thorough, and had zero patience for problems that could have been avoided by reading the relevant statute. Before you do anything else on this, talk to Sandra. He nodded, leaned back like I'd made a suggestion he was generously considering. Appreciate the input. We'll keep you posted. I walked back to my desk, past the framed photos of bridges I'd designed, past the engineering license hanging on the wall, past the cabinet that held 22 years of stamped drawings. Something settled in me then, not anger, something colder and clearer than anger. The recognition that this was actually happening, that the man they'd handed authority to genuinely believed engineering was a procurement problem. I went home that evening and opened a folder I hadn't touched in 4 years. Inside it was my employment contract, 31 pages. And on page 27, buried in section 14, Addendum B, was a paragraph I'd negotiated quietly and carefully back in 2002 when the firm had almost been acquired by a national chain and the new owners had suggested I wasn't essential personnel. The paragraph read, in part, "The designated licensed professional engineer of record, as named in Addendum B1 and registered with applicable state engineering boards, shall maintain active, certified employment status with the firm for the duration of any project in which said engineer's license number appears on submitted permit documentation. In the event of termination, resignation, or removal from compensated status for any period exceeding 72 hours, the firm shall be obligated to notify all relevant state engineering boards of the change in PE of record status, at which point all affected project permits shall be subject to mandatory suspension pending appointment and approval of a replacement licensed engineer." Gerald Sr., the CEO's father, who'd run the firm back then, had waved it through without reading it. "Fine, whatever you need, just don't let the acquisition fall through," his exact words. I read it again that night. Slowly, then I emailed Sandra. Subject: Question on licensure continuity section 14, Addendum B. 4 sentences. Told her I'd heard mention of a potential restructuring of the PE of record function and wanted to make sure she was aware of the relevant contract language before any decisions were finalized. Attached the full agreement. Sent it at 9:17 p.m. Sandra was at my desk at 8:05 the next morning. She didn't sit down. "Robert, this contract." "Yes." "Marcus hasn't read it," I assumed. She pulled up a chair. "Saturday," lowered her voice. "Walk me through the exposure." I opened my laptop. Pulled up the active project portfolio. 43 projects across 6 states. Bridges, overpasses, a pedestrian walkway system for a city redevelopment project, 2 highway ramps in Georgia, a culvert replacement program in Pennsylvania that was halfway through construction. Every single one of them permitted under my license number. "If I'm removed from active employed status," I said, "the contract requires notification to the state boards. The boards will suspend the permits. Construction stops. All 43 jobs. Some of them mid-pour." She was quiet for a moment. "Mid-pour as in they've already started setting concrete and they'd have to stop." "Yes. And the timeline to replace you? To find a licensed PE willing to assume of-record responsibility for 43 active projects they didn't design, then get them credentialed with 6 state boards, then have those boards review the permit transfers?" I paused. "Minimum 90 days. Probably closer to 6 months. Some states have backlogs." Sandra closed her eyes for approximately 2 seconds, then opened them. "How long have you been sitting on this?" "I negotiated it in 2002. Does anyone else know?" "I mentioned it to Marcus yesterday. Told him to talk to you." She stood. "I need to brief Gerald." "I know. I figured you would." She left. I poured myself coffee, went back to my work. Load calculations for a retaining wall in North Carolina. The numbers were what they were. They didn't care about office politics. 2 days passed. I didn't hear from Marcus. I noticed he stopped walking through the engineering department, stopped scheduling the Monday stand-ups. His assistant canceled 3 meetings. On a Thursday, I came in to find my keycard still worked. My email still active. Everything normal on the surface. But there was a tension in the building I'd learned to recognize over 2 decades. The kind that settles in when people at the top know something is wrong and haven't figured out how to say it yet. I had a phone call that afternoon from a headhunter I'd spoken to 6 months prior. I returned it, listened to the offer. Regional engineering director position with a competitor. Good salary, good benefits, interesting portfolio. "I need a few weeks," I told her. "Understood. The role is yours if you want it." I thanked her and hung up. That evening I sat on my porch. My daughter Claire was home for spring break, 19 years old, studying architecture at State. She was at the kitchen table with her laptop, working on a studio project. I could see her through the sliding glass door, pencil behind her ear, the way she'd sat since she was 8 years old. Her tuition was one thing. Her graduate school because she was going, no question, that kid was going was another. I'd been counting on my year-end performance bonus to shore up the fund. 22 years, I'd received that bonus. Not a single miss. I thought about what Marcus had said. Non-client facing, as if the bridges I designed weren't facing anyone. As if the structures holding up 40 miles of highway weren't serving every person who drove across them. I thought about my ex-wife, who'd told me years ago that I gave too much to that firm, that I'd never be fully seen there. I disagreed, at the time. I went inside, made dinner, helped Claire think through her structural calculations. She was designing a mixed-use building for her studio, and the load path analysis was giving her trouble. We worked through it together for an hour. She got it. She always got it eventually. You're kind of a genius, Dad, she said, exasperated in the affectionate way only your children can be. I'm a civil engineer, I said. It's mostly just math. She rolled her eyes. Same thing. I went to bed thinking about the contract clause, about the fact that I drafted it for exactly this reason, about the fact that Marcus Webb had been handed a loaded weapon and decided to point it at the person holding the safety. The termination notice arrived on a Tuesday. 4 weeks severance, standard language. Position eliminated as part of strategic restructuring. Marcus's signature at the bottom. Gerald's initials in the corner. I read it once, set it on my desk, picked up my phone and called Sandra. I got the notice, I said. A pause. Robert, I want you to know I advised against this. Strongly. On multiple occasions. I know you did. Marcus convinced Gerald that the legal risk was manageable, that he could have a replacement PE credentialed within the transition window. He can't. I know he can't. I've been telling him that for 6 weeks. Sandra. My voice stayed level. You know what has to happen now. Quiet on her end. Yes. The contract requires notification to the state boards within 72 hours of my removal from compensated status. Yes, I won't interfere with that process. But I won't facilitate a workaround either. I understand. She paused. Do you have representation? My attorney will send over contact information this afternoon. I spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning out my desk. Methodically, every personal item, my framed engineering license, the photo of the Caldwell overpass ribbon cutting, a coffee mug my daughter had given me that said world's okayest structural engineer. She'd bought it ironically, which meant she'd thought it was funny, which meant she'd understood the joke, which meant I'd raised her right. I did not take any firm files, did not copy any project documents, did not touch anything that wasn't mine. My personal work logs, yes. The notebook where I kept my own notes on methodology and calculations, yes. Everything else, I left exactly as it was. The IT department deactivated my credentials at 5 p.m. I turned in my keycard, waved to the receptionist, a woman named Denise who'd been there longer than I had. You take care of yourself, Robert, she said. Always, I said. You too. I drove home, fed the dog, made pasta, watched an hour of television, went to bed. 72 hours is 3 days. The notification requirement activated automatically. Sandra had actually set up a compliance calendar when I'd first flagged the contract, back when she was trying to prevent what was now happening, professional to the end. She sent the notifications to all 6 state engineering boards on Thursday evening. Friday morning, I went fishing. I have a spot about 40 minutes from my house. Small lake. Quiet. My father used to take me there when I was a kid. I still use his rod. The fishing isn't always great. That's never really the point. I sat out there for 4 hours, thought about nothing in particular. The kind of thinking that doesn't have words. My phone had 12 missed calls by noon. I didn't look at who from, had a rough idea. Drove home, showered, made a sandwich. Then I sat down and listened to the voicemails. Georgia Department of Transportation. Calling to notify Harmon and Associates that permit number GA2244BR had been flagged for PE of record status change and was under mandatory review. Effective immediately. All active construction activities should cease pending resolution. Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. Similar message. 2 projects. North Carolina. 1 project, mid-construction, retaining wall. They were particularly unhappy. That one had already been under a tight completion timeline for a municipal client. Maryland, Virginia, Florida. 7 voicemails from state agencies. The 8th was from Sandra. She sounded tired but not surprised. Robert, call me when you can. Not to negotiate, just so I know you received this. I called her back. I received it, I said. Marcus is. She stopped. Gerald wants a meeting. Tomorrow morning, he's asking if you'd be willing. My attorney will need to be present. Of course. And Marcus is not in the room. She paused. That might be difficult too. Sandra. Marcus is not in the room. That's not a preference. Another pause. I'll communicate that. Saturday morning. Gerald's office. Real wood desk. Photos of every major project the firm had completed in 40 years, going back to his father's era. Gerald himself was 64. Second generation. He'd actually been decent to me over the years. Not close, but decent. He stood when I came in, extended his hand. I shook it. We'd known each other long enough for that. My attorney, James Whitfield, sat to my left. He was 60, compact, the kind of man who communicated very precisely and billed accordingly. Sandra sat across the table, two other people I recognized from the board. Marcus was not in the room. Gerald sat, looked at the papers in front of him, looked at me. Robert, I want to start by saying I understand the position we've put you in, and I don't think this was handled. Gerald, I wasn't rude, just clear. I've had a long career. I don't need preamble. Let's talk about what this actually costs. He nodded. Respected that, I think. James slid a document across the table, clean, 3 pages. We'd drafted it the week before the termination notice. Not because I knew it was coming, but because I'd known it was possible since March. Preparation isn't paranoia, it's engineering. Full payment of withheld severance at contractual terms, not the modified offer in the termination letter, James said. Additionally, compensation for breach of PE of record continuity obligations as defined in Section 14. That figure accounts for the regulatory notification requirement that was triggered by the firm's action, not mine. One of the board members leaned forward. The notification requirement was contractual. If Robert chose not to, the notification was mandatory under state law, Sandra said, quietly, regardless of the contractual language. Once a PE of record status changes, the firm has a statutory obligation to inform the relevant boards. Marcus's belief that we could manage a quiet internal transition was incorrect. I documented that in my memo from 6 weeks ago. She slid her own document across the table. Her memo. I hadn't seen it before. It was thorough. Underlined once, her recommendation, do not proceed with restructuring until PE of record continuity is resolved. Gerald read it, set it down. His jaw was doing something careful. How long are we looking at? He asked. To get operations back online. To get a replacement PE credentialed on all 43 active projects across 6 state boards? James said. Sandra's estimate was 90 to 180 days. We think that's optimistic. North Carolina has a backlog right now. Georgia's board meets quarterly. You're probably looking at 8 months on the outside before you're fully operational again. And mid-construction projects? North Carolina is the critical one, I said. This was the first time I'd spoken in several minutes. Gerald looked at me. The retaining wall project in Mecklenburg County. They poured the first section already. If they stop now, and the project sits for 8 months, you're looking at potential structural integrity questions on the poured section. Because it wasn't designed to be a standalone segment. You'll likely have to demo it and start over. That's the client's problem, but it's also your liability problem. The board member who'd pushed back earlier had gone quiet. What are we actually talking about? Gerald said. He was looking at the number on James's document. All in. James pointed to the bottom line. $890,000. That includes the base severance owed, the breach penalty per addendum B terms, and a consulting retainer to facilitate the PE of record transition on a timeline that actually works. Robert will assist with credentialing, the replacement engineer, provide documentation support, and remain available for state board inquiries. His involvement is what gets you back online in 60 days instead of 8 months. Silence. Gerald looked at Sandra. She didn't look away, didn't nod or shake her head, just held his gaze steady, which itself was an answer. This is leverage, Gerald said. Not accusatory, just naming it. This is a contract, I said. One I negotiated in good faith 22 years ago. One that was on file in your legal department the entire time Marcus was planning a restructuring. One that Sandra tried to get him to read. The leverage existed before any of this. The only thing that changed is someone decided I was a line item. Gerald looked at his hands, then at the window, then back at me. Was there any version of this where you didn't use it? I thought about that honestly. If you'd come to me directly, told me you needed to reduce costs, asked what options existed. Yes, there were options. Early retirement package, consulting transition, structured handoff. We could have found something. I paused. Marcus told me it wasn't personal. Then he removed me from the org chart without talking to me. That's not restructuring. That's someone who didn't think I mattered enough to have a conversation with. Gerald absorbed that. Where is Marcus? He asked, seemingly to the room. I asked him not to be here, Sandra said. I know. I mean, where is he in this building right now? His office, I assume. Gerald nodded slowly. I'm going to need the room for a few minutes. James and I stepped out, walked to the small kitchen at the end of the hall. I poured water. James checked his phone. They'll accept, he said. I know. You could have pushed for more. I know that too. He looked at me. Why didn't you? I thought about it. Because 890,000 is what they owe. More than that would be punishment. I'm not interested in punishment. I just wanted them to understand that I wasn't disposable. James was quiet for a moment. Understood. We went back in 20 minutes later. Gerald was still at his desk. The two board members were gone. Sandra was still there. We'll accept the terms, Gerald said. Wire transfer Monday. Full amount. He looked up. Robert, I want to say something, and I want you to know I mean it. I waited. I should have read the contract myself. When Marcus brought this plan to me, I should have gone back to the original agreement. I didn't. He paused. That's on me. I nodded once. Appreciate that. The written acknowledgement, James said. That's also in the terms. Yes, Sandra said. We'll have something drafted and read at the next all-staff. Gerald will deliver it personally. We shook hands. James gathered his documents. I picked up my coat. At the door, I turned back. Gerald, whoever you bring in as the replacement PE, give them the same protections I had. Make sure their name's in the contract. Make sure it's on the first page, not page 27. I paused. Not for their sake. For yours. He nodded. Sandra's already drafting it. I looked at Sandra. She allowed herself a small nod. I left. The drive home was quiet. Radio off. Windows cracked. Late spring air. The kind of morning that doesn't care what just happened to you, which is exactly what you need sometimes. Claire was still asleep when I got home. She was on break. She'd earned the sleep. I made coffee. Sat at the kitchen table. Looked at the engineering license on the wall across from me. Robert Calloway, P.E. I'd earned that over 4 years of exams and field experience, and late nights working through problems until I understood them. Not just until I'd gotten close enough. On Monday, the wire cleared at 11:14 a.m. My phone pinged. $890,000. I sat with it for a moment. Then I opened my laptop and made 3 transfers. A significant piece went to Claire's education fund. Her graduate school was no longer a financial question. It was just a matter of which program she chose. A portion to retirement, which was now a genuine near-term option rather than a distant one. And I wrote a check to the youth engineering camp I'd volunteered at for a decade. They'd been trying to raise money for new equipment for 2 years. I'd been meaning to give more for just as long. That afternoon, Sandra sent a photo. The all-staff presentation. Slide on the big screen at the front of the conference room. In recognition of Robert Calloway, P.E., 22 years of engineering excellence. Below it, a list. The Caldwell Overpass, Route 9, Millerton Pedestrian Bridge, the North Carolina Project, 14 others by name, and a line at the bottom, Principal Engineer of Record. The structural foundation of this firm's infrastructure portfolio, her accompanying text. Gerald read every word. Marcus was in the back row. I didn't respond to that part, just texted back. Thank you, Sandra. For everything, she replied. I put it in writing this time. First page. Bold. That evening, Claire found me on the porch. She'd seen the acknowledgement slide somehow. Sandra had sent it to firm-wide email, which apparently still included my address, until IT caught up. Dad. She sat in the chair next to me. What happened? Long story. Mom said you got a settlement. I did. She looked at the yard. The dog was investigating the fence line. Was it bad? Working there? I thought about the question carefully. The work wasn't bad. The work was good. I liked the work. I paused. Someone decided that the work didn't have a person attached to it. That's the part that was bad. She was quiet for a moment. And then you made them understand it did. Something like that. How? I read the contract. She laughed. Single short laugh. Then got serious. Dad, are you okay? I thought about that. The honest answer. Yeah. I think I actually am. She leaned over and put her head on my shoulder for a moment. Just a moment. Then sat back up. Because she's 22 years old and there are limits. Good. We sat there for a while. The dog came back from the fence. The evening got cooler. What are you going to do now? She asked. I'm going back in on Wednesday. Consulting. Help them transition the PE of record function to someone capable. Train the replacement properly. I paused. And then when that's done, I'm probably going to take that other offer. The regional director role. More money, more autonomy, less Marcus. She nodded seriously. Sounds like a good trade. I consulted for 61 days, came in Tuesdays and Thursdays, worked directly with the replacement PE, a woman named Helen Marsh, 50 years old, sharp, had been at a state transportation department for the previous decade. She knew what she was doing. I made sure the state boards met her in person where possible. made sure the permit transfers went smoothly, left documentation that was, frankly, more thorough than anything the firm had ever required of me before, because I wanted to make sure Helen had what she needed. Marcus was reassigned before I finished my consulting engagement. New title, Director of Strategic Initiatives, an office on a different floor, no direct reports. Gerald's way of handling it without a public firing, the kind of soft landing that happens when someone's father is on the board. I had nothing to say about that. It wasn't my business. On my last day consulting, Helen walked me to the lobby. We shook hands. Anything I should know? She asked. About the work, the projects, the firm. I thought about it. They're decent people, most of them. They just forgot, for a while, that the buildings stand because of the engineers, not the presentations. I paused. Don't let them forget again. She nodded. Already have it in writing. First page. I drove to Claire's campus after. She was in her studio, working on a new project, a small transit hub design, timber frame, adaptive structure. She showed me the load calculations. I found one error. We fixed it in about 8 minutes. You're insufferable, she said, fondly. You're going to be a great engineer, I said. Architect, one of the good ones, I said, who actually understands structure. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. The thing about building things, bridges, buildings, systems, careers, is that the work doesn't disappear when you leave the room. The Caldwell Overpass carries 30,000 vehicles a day. The Route 9 connector has been in service for 11 years. Somewhere in North Carolina, a retaining wall is holding back a hillside in the rain. My name isn't on a sign anywhere. That was never the point. The point was that the work was real, and it required someone who understood what they were doing. And for 22 years, I was that person. I knew my value before anyone else did. I just made sure it was written down somewhere they couldn't ignore. Some people call what I did leverage. Some people call it revenge. I call it engineering. You account for every load. You don't build without understanding what holds the weight. And you always document your work. The new boat is sitting in my driveway waiting for spring. Nothing fancy. 16 feet. Reliable outboard motor. Good for the lake where my father used to take me. Claire says she wants to come fishing sometime. I told her she'd have to put her phone down. She said she would. We'll see, but I'm looking forward to it.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger, now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you, I don't need what's left undone. Sometimes losing who once broke you is how healing has begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone